Counsel?
Thank you, Your Honor. Miss Arvizo, we were talking about the domestic problems you had with David, okay? And you said that you had obtained 2 restraining orders against him at various times, right?
I didn't obtain them. It was through the court system that they were issued.
One for the criminal court system, correct?
Which I think, as best I can remember, is that they routinely issue them.
And one through the family court system, is that correct?
Correct. That my family attorney requested.
And who was your family attorney at that point?
Mr. Michael Manning.
Okay. And when the issue came up about David Arvizo violating a restraining order, you went to court, true?
No.
Did you ever appear in court for any hearing involving allegations that David had violated a restraining order by talking to Davellin?
I think that was in the course of they didn't have what you're trying to say, that there was a separate issue. It wasn't a separate issue. It was, as best as I can recall, it was within the midst of the domestic violence that he was arrested that he did upon me.
And the violation of the restraining order that was alleged against him had to do with his showing up at school and talking to Davellin, true?
It had to do with the fact that he violated the restraining order.
The violation of the restraining order had to do with David showing up at school and talking to Davellin, right?
Your Honor, all object. Lack of foundation.
Overruled. You may answer.
David, a grown man, was given a restraining order, and he violated it.
Let me repeat the question again. If it's not clear, tell me.
It's not clear.
Okay. What was the nature of the violation?
What do you mean?
Didn't David go to Davellin's school?
Yes.
See Davellin outside of school and ask her to go into his car and talk to him?
He called, my understanding, because I wasn't there. The best who could explain it would be Davellin.
You don't know what happened?
I do know, but the best one who could explain it would be Davellin.
What do you know about it, Miss Arvizo?
Okay, my understanding is that David had called her over into the car, and he wouldn't let her go until he finished his conversation with her and until he was satisfied. Then he let her go. That's my understanding, but the best one who could explain it is Davellin.
You attended court with Davellin when there was a hearing with a judge on whether or not David had violated that restraining order, right?
Again, that was in the midst of the domestic violence that he had done upon me.
Did you attend court when there was a hearing on whether or not David had violated the restraining order?
I think I understand what you're trying to say, but if not, please make me aware.
Okay.
I feel that he is trying to say that I was present when these proceedings were happening in the midst of the domestic violence. That is inaccurate. She went behind a closed door with a judge, a court reporter, and David, Mr. Halpern, his attorney. And that's where they had the hearing, some kind of hearing, understanding, talking. I don't know what that process would be called. Because he had violated the restraining order.
And you were in court that day, right?
They did it behind closed doors, in the judge's chambers, and I was not allowed to be present.
You were in court that day, true?
I was in the courthouse, in the courtroom. But in the judge's chambers when that took place, I was not present. And there was a court reporter reporting everything there.
And who was with you in court that day?
On that day it was me and Davellin, I think.
Was Carol Lemire ever in court with you?
With me? No. She's my ex-husband's, David Arvizo's, best buddy.
Was she ever in court with you for any proceeding involving domestic violence?
With me, never. But with David. David, that's his girlfriend.
Okay, now, you've told the jury about your experience in obtaining restraining orders involving David, right?
I don't understand what you're trying to say.
You've just told the jury about your history of getting restraining orders against David, right?
Not history, not experience, but what happened after he committed these crimes.
You never went to any court at any time and tried to get a restraining order against Mr. Jackson or anyone you thought was associated with him, right?
I was hoping it will just go all away. And Mr. Dickerman handled everything.
You thought you were being falsely imprisoned, right?
Correct.
You thought.
I didn't think it. I knew it.
You thought you were being extorted, true?
What do you mean?
Did you think you were the victim of extortion by Mr. Jackson or any people associated with him?
Please be more clear.
Do you know what extortion means?
No, I don't.
Okay. Did you think you were being restrained against your will by either Mr. Jackson or anyone you thought was associated with him?
Yes.
Did you think you were being?
I didn't think it. I knew it.
Did you think you were being kidnapped by Mr. Jackson or anyone associated with him?
Calls for a legal conclusion. Objection.
Sustained.
Did you think you were being held against your will by Mr. Jackson or anyone associated with him?
Did I think it?
Yes.
I knew it.
And did you think you were the victim of either force or fear created by anyone associated with Mr. Jackson?
I knew it.
Yet, you never went into court to get any restraining order at any time regarding Mr. Jackson, true?
I was too scared of him.
Okay. And at the time you claim you were being held against your will, you had a number of lawyers who had represented you at that point, true?
I don't understand what you're saying.
Well, you had a lawyer who, you just told the jury, had represented you in your domestic dispute with David, correct?
Correct.
At some point you visited Mr. Dickerman with Jamie Masada, correct?
Uh-huh.
You had a number of meetings with Mr. Dickerman and Jamie Masada, correct?
Correct.
At some point, Mr. Dickerman referred you to an attorney named Larry Feldman, correct?
This is after the fact.
Is that true?
Correct.
Never have you ever sought a restraining order against Mr. Jackson or anyone associated with him, right?
That's correct. Whereupon, a portion of a CD, Plaintiff's Exhibit 809, was played for the court and jury.
Okay. Frank Cassio says to you, do you know everything that David is saying is completely false? Do you see this?
Yes, I do.
And you say, oh, I know. That's why I'm getting, that's why I'm getting all those information. Oh, for example, there was like a year and a half ago, they did an investigation of me and David. We understand that Michael Jackson and Chris Tucker are involved with you and the kids, and they said, and the kids spoke up and they said, they're family to us. If we didn't have Michael, we wouldn't have a father figure in our life. And then the social worker, inaudible, it says, possible keys typing. Okay, I'll give the person here a call named David Arvizo. And she documented it and everything, and so I'm returning the note paper so you can have all these papers. Do you see that quote?
Yes.
Alright, you're referring to an investigation of you and David, correct?
Yes.
What investigation are you talking about?
Okay, remember how I told you about the Child Protective Services, that there was different people, not this group, the one that was in a different building, which was a female. This is how. My children's state of mind at that point, because Michael had been kind to them in the initial meeting when we first met in August. That stood with them. Yeah.
Well, okay, so you met Michael Jackson in August of what year?
Of 2000. And also Evie, his personal assistant, made sure that the children felt and saw everything as a family environment and to see him as a father figure. This is Evie Tavashi, his personal assistant.
When you were involved in the investigation you just described?
Yes.
How many times had you seen Michael Jackson?
Me personally by this time, once.
You had seen Michael Jackson one time, and when you're being investigated by the Department of Children and Family Services, you tell them that Michael is like a father to your kids and your family, true?
No, inaccurate. It says, and the kids spoke up and they said, they're family to us. The children continue speaking and say, if we didn't have Michael, we wouldn't have a father. My kids said that.
A father figure in our life, correct?
Yes, that's the children.
Were you there when the kids said that to the representatives of the Department of Children and Family Services who were investigating you?
That's correct.
One meeting with Michael and...
Not me.
And you're calling him, family, and, a father figure, right?
Yes, per Evie Tavaschi's, his personal assistant, request. And also Michael had also pointed that out to the children in August of 2000.
I'm asking about you.
Okay, me?
You're being investigated by DCFS, true?
Yes, me and David. Because when David was arrested for domestic violence, remember how I told you that this particular social worker, I was very impressed, because she didn't care about me. All she was interested was in my children. And that's what I thought and was hoping that these three, who were only solely concerned about being sued by Michael Jackson, would have had that same position. Then all this wouldn't have happened.
Miss Arvizo, we're talking about a DCFS investigation, by your own words. That was a year and a half before you're quoted in the conversation, correct?
This is correct.
That has nothing to do with what you just told the jury.
This has everything to do with it. This, 2003. The DCFS was about 2001. So I'm giving a best estimate on this conversation.
You've met Michael one time and you're using him to defend yourself in the investigation?
No, incorrect. Inaccurate. We had, in my apartment, we had a series of different pictures. And the social worker had pointed out, because the pictures that they had taken out of my apartment when they did that little move, they were there displayed amongst many celebrities, many people. People that even donated blood were up there.
Now, you told the jury when the prosecutor for the government was asking you questions that you'd always had good relationships with the Department of Children and Family Services, correct?
Who's the government?
These guys.
Okay.
Okay? Do you remember telling the jury that you had always had good relations with the Department of Children and Family Services?
That's correct. Prior to this CPS meeting, which they were not concerned with my children, they were just concerned about being sued by Michael Jackson. It was a positive experience. Like I said, they cared solely about my kids.
And was it a positive experience with the Department of Children and Family Services when you were investigated a year and a half before this conversation with Frank Cascio?
That's what I'm talking about. In the year 2000, when David was arrested, they initiated a Child Family Services. I don't know, one of those. It's the same people, I feel, had came out to make sure that I was a good mom and make sure that the children were in a safe environment.
And you used the name, Michael Jackson, and the name, Chris Tucker, in that investigation?
That's incorrect.
So, are you not telling the truth when you say that to Frank?
No, you said if I used them. That's inaccurate. Like I said, there was pictures on my walls of different people that had been kind to my children. Amongst them was Michael, Chris, celebrities, other people, and people that had donated blood. And it was her question that she asked that sparked my children to answer that. At that moment was a time that was their mindset.
You were investigated by the Department of Children and Family Services in the 1990s when Gavin alleged you had abused him. Remember that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Did you have a good relationship with the Department of Children and Family Services at that time?
Yes, I did.
Okay. He accused you of abusing him and then he changed his mind, right?
No, that's inaccurate.
Why don't you tell the jury what happened in the investigation in the 1990s?
I feel, if I'm correct, I feel that what he's talking about, it was a time when Gavin was, I think, in kindergarten. I think it was kindergarten. I'm not sure. And the nurse, or something like that, had said to Gavin, and this is the best I can recall it, had said, about Gavin going home. And then Gavin says, no, I don't want to go home, because he didn't want to go home from school. And so he had told them that if he went home, he would get in trouble or something like that. I don't remember very clear. And so the Department of Child Family Services came out, verified that my son was in a safe environment, and that was it. It was another positive experience.
He had accused you of abusing him and then changed his story, didn't he?
No, it's inaccurate what you're saying.
You just said that to the jury, that he accused you of abuse, right?
And it's okay. He was a kindergartner. And the way, the nurse or teacher, whoever it was, this is the best I can recall, had communicated it that way to the Department of Child Family Services. And that was it. It's okay.
Okay, let's keep going. Thanks. Whereupon, a portion of a CD, Plaintiff's Exhibit 809, was played for the court and jury. Okay, Frank says to you, Janet, can you do me a favor? You see what's going with everything, and it seems like you're, hiding from everybody, right? And you go, yes. See that?
Yes, I do.
Who were you hiding from?
Well, from the people that they said that were out to kill my children.
You were also hiding from the media, weren't you?
No, the media, I was. I was a little bit unclear, because Michael had said that they're all bad people.
You had said they were bad people.
Well, because Michael in the initial meeting in Miami had said that, and so did the Germans.
I see. Okay.
So I believed them. I'm incompetent. I don't know, I don't have experience with this, so I believed him.
I'm sorry. Do you remember making repeated statements that the media were harassing your family, your parents, your children, and you?
I don't see anywhere I say here, harassing.
Did you ever say that to anyone at any time, Ms. Arvizo?
In this conversation I don't think I said, and prior to this I never did. This is per these conversations, and this is multiple conversations.
I understand your position. I'm asking you a general question. Did you at any time, while these events were occurring, ever say to anybody, the media is harassing my family, my children, my parents, and me? Yes or no?
Well, like you said, it's general, so I'm going to generally answer. Prior to these conversations, which are multiple conversations, no.
I understand your position.
It's no.
So you never complained to anyone about the media harassing you at any time, other than in this conversation.
You know.
Is that true?
No, that's correct.
Okay, this was the first and only time you ever complained about the media harassing you and your family?
And that was because, in the initial meeting in Miami, Michael had pointed out that the media were bad people, which I come to find out different now, and that the Germans had said they're bad people. I believed them. When I got to my mom's and I saw all those offers and the constant phone calls, then it just confirmed in my mind to what they had told me. And that's it. They're just doing their job. And that's okay.
Then why did you tell Frank they were harassing you at your home?
I didn't say they were harassing me.
Never said anything like that in this conversation, true?
No, I didn't say, harassing.
Okay, alright. Whereupon, a portion of a CD, Defendant's Exhibit number 809, was played for the court and jury. Now, you tell Frank about the offers you received, right?
Uh-huh.
And you, in effect, tell him you're not going to accept any of them, right?
Correct.
And then you say,
because that's not in my nature.
I understand that. We'll get to the J.C. Penney case and a few other things.
Objection. Move to strike.
Stricken.
It's a gratuitous comment.
Withdrawn. You say here, I know we're family, Frank. Me, you, me, my kids are family. You, Marie Nicole, my kids, baby Rubba are family. Michael, Marie Nicole, inaudible, Frank coughs. You, me, are family and my parents. That's all I got. So that's why when these German people, and then it's inaudible. Do you see that?
That's correct.
Now, this conversation is taking place after you say you escaped from Neverland with Jesus, true?
Correct.
You're still calling Michael your family, correct?
That's correct, yes.
You didn't escape from Neverland at all, did you?
Oh, yes, I did.
And how many times did you go back after your first escape?
Be more specific, please.
How many times did you return to Neverland after your first escape?
After I was convinced by Frank, believing that they were good people, I went back probably, well, they've broken it down for you guys in a period of 2 days. So, let me see. I went back with Chris immediately. Came back that same day. And then when Vinny took me back, and that's it. I think. I'm trying to be summarizing those 2 days worth of information.
Well, it's a total of approximately 3 escapes, isn't it?
Are you including the one where I permanently left and never went back?
Yes, and maybe it's 4 escapes. How many times do you escape from Neverland?
I'm asking you, please.
I'm asking you how many times, in your mind, you escaped from that dungeon Neverland?
I'm going to object as argumentative.
Sustained.
How many times did you escape from Neverland, Miss Arvizo?
Objection. Asked and answered.
Overruled. You may answer.
Thank you. With Jesus. With Chris. And then the last time. And that's the best I can remember.
And during the period of these escapes, you're constantly referring to Michael as family to you, right?
Prior?
Objection. Vague as to during the period of.
I'll rephrase it, Your Honor.
All right.
I'll withdraw it. Between the first and the last escape from Neverland, you were still referring to Michael as your family, right?
Prior to Jesus taking me, my kids and me, back to El Monte to my parents' house, I thought he was still a good guy. I was confused and I was sad at that moment because I did not know the events or what's happened. Now I know a lot. But in that period I only thought it was the Germans. That's it. Now, after, when Chris brought me back, I knew now things are problematic. Things that are arising, so I'm still clueless. But as time evolves, I'm finding out more and more things. Now today, I know different.
Ms. Arvizo. Getting back to the leg wax that you had on February 11, 2003, the day of your escape, you had a full leg treatment, a brow treatment, a lip treatment, a face treatment and a bikini wax. Is that correct?
That's incorrect.
Would it refresh your recollection to look at the receipt?
It wouldn't refresh my recollection because I know my recollection. It's solely a leg wax. If they've manipulated it, that's what they have done.
The total cost was $140, correct?
Like I say, it was only a leg wax.
Would it refresh your recollection to just look at the copy of the receipt?
I'm telling you, it was only a leg wax. He has the ability to choreograph everything.
How about you, Ms. Arvizo?
No.
Okay, you don't want to even look at the receipt?
No, because I'm telling you, it was only a leg wax.
And who paid for that?
I paid for it. The reason is, they deducted it from the items they lost or stolen that were taken from me from the Miami trip.
Who paid for your treatment at the salon?
I did, because that was their effort in replacing the items that were lost and stolen from the bags that I had in Miami.
Did you pay the person at the salon your own money?
Like I said, the condition here was that they were deducting it from the items that they had lost or stolen from me.
Did you pay the person at the salon any money?
I just answered that.
Did you take money of your own and give it to anyone at the salon on that day, Miss Arvizo?
No.
Who did?
I don't know. I don't know. That was taken care of by the Germans in the process of doing their positive PR, which there was a film crew. It would be good to show that.
We'll talk about that. Okay. Whereupon, a portion of a DVD, Plaintiff's Exhibit 809, was played for the court and jury. Now, Frank asks you to be interviewed for a documentary about Michael Jackson, correct?
Correct.
This is after your escape with Jesus, correct?
Yes, it is.
And he tells you he'd like to do a documentary and would like you to say, nice things. Actually, he used the word, beautiful, about Michael, right?
This is correct.
And you say, oh, I would. That's all I have to say. Frank says, you. And then you say, me and the kids, that's all we have to say. Correct?
This is correct. In this period, I only thought it was the Germans that were problems.
Are you still telling the jury that everything you said nice about Michael on the rebuttal tape was from a script?
Yes.
And if it hadn't been for that script, you wouldn't have said beautiful things about Michael, right?
Could you say that again?
Are you telling the jury that when you did the rebuttal video, you and the kids, and you said nice things about Michael Jackson, you were doing it all from a script? Yes or no, Miss Arvizo?
Well, you lost me now.
I will rephrase it.
Okay.
In this conversation that you didn't know was recorded.
Correct.
Frank's asking you.
That was illegally recorded.
Thank you. In this conversation where you were recorded.
Illegally.
I understand your position.
Okay.
You tell Frank that all you and your family had to say in a documentary are beautiful things about Michael Jackson, true?
Yes, that is correct.
Yet, you've also told the jury that when you did the documentary, all the good things you said about Mr. Jackson were scripted, correct?
In the document. In the thing. The rebuttal that they did. The whole entire thing. I know I have a problem speaking. I'm trying to do my best. The whole thing, from the beginning to the end, including outtakes, it was all scripted material. All of it. You didn't have to do that at this point. I would have done it on my own. But, prior to that, because I thought it was only the Germans. But from the period that they did this, now this is scripted, now things have elevated. But in this, at this moment in time, yes, I would have. But now? Have another rebuttal, and I'll speak freely. Have another audio tape with Brad Miller. I'll speak freely now.
I understand. But at this point in time after your first escape, you had nothing but nice things to say about Michael Jackson?
That is correct. I only thought it was the Germans.
And you were ready to do a documentary about Michael Jackson where all you had were beautiful things to say, correct?
And only if the things wouldn't have been dictated of exactly what to say. Only if. That's the only problem I had. That they want. They wanted me to say things that were scripted. Exactly what they wanted to say. Because I felt what's wrong with telling the truth. And at that moment, that was the truth.
And everything you said.
And now I know different. It was happening right underneath my nose.
Miss Arvizo. Everything you said on that rebuttal tape was scripted. Is that what you're saying?
Every single thing.
We will get to the rebuttal.
Even the outtakes.
Ready? Yeah. Whereupon, a portion of a CD, Plaintiff's Exhibit 809, was played for the court and jury. Now, you complained to Frank that the Germans are trying to dictate to you what to say, right?
I didn't complain. I expressed myself.
Is that what you expressed to him?
Yes. Because they were trying to dictate to me exactly what to say. For example, also the charitable act. They wanted me to say that me, Michael, my children had went to Germany and gave to German orphans. That's what they said. I'm not going to do that. What's wrong with the truth at that point? I thought he was a good guy. Now I know different.
Miss Arvizo, at any time in that rebuttal tape, did you talk about going to Germany and dealing with orphans, per the script?
No, obviously they eliminated that.
Okay.
Or maybe I forgot. I don't know.
I understand.
I was, like I told you, I got in trouble for not doing exactly what they said. So that's why the process of leaving out of the country had to happen.
Right. I understand.
You're correct. I did an inadequate job. I'm a poor actress. You're right.
I think you're a good one.
I'm going to move to object. Ask the court to admonish counsel.
I'll admonish counsel not to make those remarks.
I will.
Admonish the jury to disregard such a remark. I expect more professional behavior from you.
I apologize, Your Honor. I withdraw it.
To the witness, and you must only answer his questions. You're not to get into arguments with him. It's as much your fault. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
You said that to Frank, that what you say in the documentary has to come from the heart, right?
Yes. I said, yes, I did. I said, think with your heart, not your head. Because our heart has a lot of pure things in there.
And when you said the things you said about Michael Jackson on that rebuttal video, you were, in fact, speaking from the heart, right?
It was all scripted.
Okay, let's keep going. Whereupon, a portion of a CD, Plaintiff's Exhibit 809, was played for the court and jury. Now, you said you didn't like someone named Mark Ratner, right?
Uh-huh.
Mark Ratner was a director on the Rush Hour movie, true?
Incorrect.
Who was Mark Ratner?
I came to find out afterwards that it was Mark Schaffel.
Well, you talked about Mark Ratner.
There is no Mark Ratner. There's only Brett Ratner.
And
I hadn't.
And who is Brett Ratner?
And I haven't spoke to Brett Ratner since my children were with Chris, since 2001. I think, wait, 2000. I think it was January of 2001.
Brett Ratner was the director on the Rush Hour movie, right?
Yes.
And where did you first meet him?
I met him for about, Chris had taken the children to. That's when he was doing the filming for Rush Hour 2. It was on the set.
Did you ever see him at Neverland?
I never saw him at Neverland.
Did you ever learn that Gavin had seen him at Neverland?
Yes, I came to find out that afterwards.
And did you learn that Gavin had asked him to take Gavin to Florida to see Michael? Did you ever learn that?
You are. I have a lot of thoughts in my heart about you. But he's incorrect.
Did you ever learn such a thing? Yes or no?
What I learned afterwards is that Brett Ratner, while I was over here in Los Angeles, and Dieter had cornered my son, including with Michael, to have him sign a piece of paper. That's what I learned while I was over here in Los Angeles.
Did you ever learn that Gavin wanted to go to Florida to see Michael, and Brett Ratner wouldn't permit it?
That's incorrect.
Okay.
Because Brett Ratner, Dieter and Michael were all there in Michael's house.
Were you there?
My children were there.
Were you there?
I wasn't there.
Now, you talk about the Germans keep trying to push Michael Jackson to drink. Do you see that?
Yes. How foolish I was. I thought he didn't drink. And they choreographed the little scene in front of me where they were pretending like he doesn't drink, and he doesn't even drink Pepsi, and I fell for that. I did. Now I know a lot of things.
You complained that the Germans are trying to get Michael Jackson to drink alcohol, right?
Yes. Like I said, I fell for it, their little choreography. I thought he didn't drink. They pointed out he didn't drink an ounce of alcohol, not even Pepsi, and I fell for it. Yes, I did.
When you fell for this, how many times had you stayed at Neverland?
This is the period before I left with Jesus. This is this period.
When you fell for this, how many times had you stayed at Neverland?
This is the period before I left with Jesus.
Okay, and did you watch the people you refer to as the Germans trying to get Michael to drink?
Yes. Michael was part of this choreography. Michael had pointed out that he doesn't drink, and the German said he doesn't drink and that he doesn't even drink Pepsi. He was going, no. And now I know different. Now I know that Neverland's all about booze, pornography and sex with boys.
Move to strike her comments as self-serving.
They're stricken. The jury is admonished to disregard those remarks. Whereupon, a portion of a CD, Plaintiff's Exhibit 809, was played for the court and jury.
Now, Frank says there are evil people out there, and you agree with him, correct?
Yes, I believed him.
Okay, and he talks about making some arrangements because you're not safe, right?
That's correct.
And you thank him, correct?
Let me see. I'm just being appropriate.
You're just being.
I have manners.
You're just being well-mannered?
I'm just having manners, because as you can recall, I had left. I believed what he had said.
Your Honor, can I move to strike her comments?
So I went to Jay Jackson's house instead of going back.
Just a moment. All right, I'll strike after she said, I'm just having manners.
When you agreed with Frank that he should make arrangements because you weren't safe, you were just being well-mannered, correct?
At this point, I'm being only well-mannered, and I didn't agree. He was convincing me.
I see. Okay, alright. Whereupon, a portion of a CD, Plaintiff's Exhibit 809, was played for the court and jury. Now, you get back on the line with Frank and he says, how can I get in touch with you, because I know sometimes your lines are always busy. And you say, yeah, it's like people are calling like crazy, you know? Who are you referring to?
This is correct. A lot of people were calling. They were interested in my son Gavin.
And you were complaining to Frank about that, correct?
No, I'm not complaining. This is in the midst of a conversation. I didn't call him. He called me. Many times.
Did you ever complain to Frank that people were calling you like crazy?
I stated to him. The word here is, yeah, it's like people are like calling crazy, you know.
Let's keep going. Whereupon, a portion of a CD, Plaintiff's Exhibit 809, was played for the court and jury. Now, Frank says to you, I'm going to need to get through to you and talk to you, because I want to get you out of there. I don't want you. I don't think it's safe. And Miss Arvizo, you respond, it's not. It's like it's crazy. Can I read you one of the letters? It's like there are all kinds of things, and it's of no interest to me, because family never leaves family behind. Do you see where you said that?
Yes, I do.
You don't refer to any death threats at all, do you?
No, I don't.
You say it's not safe, and you talk about all the letters you're getting. No reference to one single death threat.
That's because.
Is that correct, Miss Arvizo? Just please answer my question, if you can.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
You don't have to raise your voice. I'm here listening.
I'm sorry. And then you say, family never leaves family behind, you know, right?
That's correct.
You still consider Michael to be your family, right?
That's because of the initial meeting where he said.
Yes or no?
Family never leaves family behind.
You still considered Michael.
At this point?
To be part of your family?
He called himself family, and it, basically, like I said, people 50 or over have a tender spot in my heart. Sometimes.
May I object to the colloquy? Move to strike.
Sustained. Do you want to read the question back? Read the question to her.
You still consider Michael to be your family, right?
I considered him to be like family.
Okay. Whereupon, a portion of a CD, Plaintiff's Exhibit 809, was played for the court and jury. Frank says to you, Ms. Arvizo, for your safety, and if we were to put a secure, maybe have somebody 24 hours outside your house, protecting your house from people, would you mind if we do that? And your answer is, no, right?
My answer is, no, I don't want that.
Keep going. Whereupon, a portion of a CD, Plaintiff's Exhibit 809, was played for the court and jury. Now, Ms. Arvizo, after Frank says, maybe have somebody 24 hours outside your house, protecting your house from people, would you mind if you do that? And you say, no. You then talk about how your children's school is bombarded, correct?
Yes, this is because Michael and the Germans had told me that.
Well, you didn't say that now, did you?
I did say that.
You're in Los Angeles when you make this comment, aren't you?
No, it's correct. I'm telling you, you want to know the information. You weren't there, I was. Michael and the Germans had told me that.
May I ask, would the court instruct the witness just to respond to my question?
I am responding.
You must listen to the question and answer the question, and not try to advance beyond the question.
Okay.
You say to Frank, so I have my kids here, and the school is completely cooperating with giving, like, me to work. He says, okay. And you say, my children's school is like bombarded, correct?
This is correct.
Frank goes, I know, right?
That's correct.
Then you say, I didn't go to the other apartment. It's like crazy over there, correct?
This is correct.
Let's keep going. Whereupon, a portion of a CD, Plaintiff's Exhibit 809, was played for the court and jury. You then tell Frank about the apartment in East Los Angeles, correct?
This is correct.
You tell him it's on North Soto Street, right?
That's right.
And after telling him that your children's school is, like, bombarded, and that the other apartment, it's like crazy over there, you tell him that you didn't go to Soto Street. You went straight to your mom's house, true?
This is correct. I told him I came straight here to my mom's house from Neverland, to my mom's house, because I believed what the Germans and Michael had said.
Okay.
And I'm repeating what they said.
I see.
To Frank.
That's your explanation for those comments, correct?
This is accurate information.
Okay, let's keep going. Whereupon, a portion of a CD, Plaintiff's Exhibit 809, was played for the court and jury. Now, Miss Arvizo, after talking about how your children's school is bombarded, and it's crazy over at Soto Street, and that you've gone to your mom's house and didn't go to Soto Street, Frank says to you, what if we were to take you to a church up there? Because it's just really important. You're going to have somebody stay outside your house and watch you, your house, protect and make sure nobody comes to your house. Oh, I want to take you up to the ranch just for your safety and your family. And your response to that statement is, do you have a cell number, Frank? And he says, yes. At no time do you say you don't want any of that protection, do you?
At no time does it say a yes.
Your response to his statement about giving you protection is, "Can I have your cell number?" Right?
I just said, do you have, and prior to that, you said something about church. I have never missed Ash Wednesday. Never.
Objection. Move to strike.
And when I was in Neverland, they didn't take me to church. I missed Ash Wednesday.
Just a moment. I will strike those remarks. But, counsel, your question was so long and lengthy, one wonders what one should comment on in it.
Okay.
And I'll ask you to refrain from that type of question. It's causing problems here.
Yes. I'll rephrase it, Your Honor. Miss Arvizo. Referring you to Frank Caccio's statement, it begins with, "What if we were?" Do you see that?
Okay.
He says to you, "What if we were to take you to a church up there, right?"
That's correct.
Because it's just really important, right?
Uh-huh.
And it says, inaudible, right?
Yes.
And then he says, "You're going to have to take somebody, excuse me. You're going to have somebody stay outside your house and watch you, right?"
Correct.
He says, "Your house, right?"
Uh-huh.
Then he says, "Protect and make sure nobody comes to your house, right?"
Correct.
Oh, I want to take you up to the ranch just for your safety and your family. Do you see that?
Correct.
And your response to that is, "Do you have a cell number, Frank?" Right?
That's it.
And he says, "Yes."
And it's not.
Right?
And it's not a yes from me.
And it's not a no, either, is it?
It's argumentative. Objection.
He's convincing me.
Excuse me, counsel?
Objection. Argumentative.
Sustained.
Let's keep going. Whereupon, a portion of a CD, Plaintiff's Exhibit 809, was played for the court and jury. Going further into this taped phone conversation.
And notifying that there's also numerous tape breaks.
I understand. You say to Frank, "Is there a way I can get back to you, Frank?" Do you see that?
Yes, I see that. I'm being polite.
I understand. And Frank.
Because I not once, and when you see those subpoenaed phone records, called him back during this period.
And you say, "Call you, Your Honor. May I move to strike the witness's comments?"
I'm not going to strike it. The last question listed is you just saying, "I understand," and then she starts talking. So there was no question and...
Okay. Miss Arvizo, you say to Frank, "Is there a way I can get back to you, Frank?" Correct?
Correct.
Frank says, "Call you if there is an emergency, right?"
Correct. And there's also a tape break.
Yes. And then you say, "Okay, I have no control. Another phone is heard ringing, Frank. People call and call. So when they call, it sounds busy to whoever else. Do you see that?"
This is correct.
Frank says, "Okay." And then you say, "This is my mom's number."
Yes, I was at my mother's house.
You gave Frank your mom's phone number, true?
I gave Frank my mom's phone number? No.
All right.
He himself had it.
Okay. Whereupon, a portion of a CD, Plaintiff's Exhibit 809, was played for the court and jury. You said to Frank, "Don't worry, Frank, we're a family, okay?" Do you see that?
Oh, I see it right here.
Frank says, "Okay, do you see that?"
Yes.
You say, "Michael's family to me." Then it's inaudible. "My kids call him Daddy Michael." Do you see that?
That's correct. This is correct.
Then he says, but Janet, you understand like how we have to protect you and Michael, Gavin and your kids. That's why I'm so concerned. Do you see that?"
Yes.
And then you respond to Frank, "That's why the German people said, you need no protection. You're nobody."
Yes.
You know? And you say, and Frank says, "No, that's not true, correct?"
Correct. Do you want me?
I'd like to ask you just some questions, if I can, all right?
Okay, sure.
You complained to Frank that the German people said you didn't need protection, because you're a nobody, right?
No, it says, that's why the German people say, I need no protection. You're nobody, you know?
And then Frank then responds, no, that's not true, correct?
Correct. Correct. But do you want information on this statement?
Did the German people tell you you don't need protection, you're a nobody?
Yes, they sure did.
We'll move further on.
When they had me sign the paper.
Correct?
Oh, then he doesn't want you to know.
Just a moment. Just a moment. Listen to the question and answer it. You're going beyond the question. I've asked you not to do that.
Okay, this is just so hard, Judge. For 2 years I've been waiting.
I'll strike that remark. Go ahead, counsel.
Let's go. Whereupon, a portion of a CD, Plaintiff's Exhibit 809, was played for the court and jury.
Counsel, I'm sorry to break your concentration, but I want to explain something to the jury.
Sure.
If you need to start over on that, you can. To the jury, during the course of this trial, quite often I have said, I'll strike that. The purpose in doing that is twofold. One is to tell you you're not to consider that. Whether it's testimony, whether it's remarks by an attorney, whether it's remarks by a witness. And it also is reflected in the record. Later, when you're deciding this case and you're in the jury room, you may want to have testimony read back. And when testimony is read back to you, you don't, that's not there. It is stricken at that time, so the court reporter reads it to you. She sees that it's stricken, she doesn't read all of that to you. So it may seem strange that I just say, strike that. But what it really means always is, if I say, strike it, don't consider it. Don't discuss it in your deliberations. It's sort of like asking you to unring a bell that you've heard ring. But as intellects, we are, you know, we are capable of deciding the case on information that's admissible and not on information that's not admissible, right? Everybody on the jury understand that?
In unison, nods head up and down.
All right.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Did you want to, since I interrupted you, did you want to play that section back, or are you okay?
I think we're okay, Your Honor. Appreciate it, thank you. Miss Arvizo, you constantly complain about the German people in this conversation, right?
This is correct.
And going back to the portion that we just played, Frank tells you the following. No, don't. Listen. You don't have to talk to them. Just talk to me, talk to Michael, and I'm going to arrange everything. But it's either we're going to have somebody at your house this weekend or we're going to have to take you to the ranch. This way Michael wants to see you. He didn't know what happened. He thought he did something and he was trying to get in touch with you. And I said, don't worry, I'll take care of this. So, and your response to that statement is, tell him he's our family, right?
That is correct.
You never object to having security at your house, as Frank proposes, right?
I didn't, I never said, yes.
Okay, whereupon, a portion of a CD, Plaintiff's Exhibit 809, was played for the court and jury. Going further, you keep complaining about the German people. Frank says to you, you don't have to talk to them, right?
Correct.
You say, I thought like everything, my family was in jeopardy, correct?
This is correct.
Frank responds, no, right?
Yes.
And your response to that is, meaning us being with Michael and Michael being with us, correct?
Yes.
What you said to Frank was you were concerned about your family not being with Michael and Michael being with your family, true?
I said, I thought like everything, my family, was in jeopardy.
And then you say, meaning us being with Michael and Michael being with us.
Yes. I will never say no to love.
Objection. Objection to her. Move to strike the remarks.
I'm sorry. I don't understand the question or the answer. Would you just ask another question?
I'll ask another question. Yes, Your Honor. Frank says, you don't have to talk to the German people. And you say to him, I thought like everything, my family, was in jeopardy, right?
Yes.
And then you say, meaning us being with Michael and Michael being with us, correct?
This is correct.
After your escape with Jesus, you still want Michael to be with your family, and your family to be with him, true?
Yes. I thought it was all.
Objection, Your Honor.
I believed what he said in Miami.
Just a moment. All right, go ahead with your next question. Whereupon, a portion of a CD, Plaintiff's Exhibit 809, was played for the court and jury.
Going further into this tape, okay?
With the numerous tape breaks.
I understand. Now, Frank says, we need to protect you and your family, so I'll call you in 1 hour to see if you're okay, right?
Okay, did you go farther up, higher, or?
Well, let's see, the pages aren't numbered. So it starts at, the top of the page starts with, to do in a couple of hours. Do you see that?
Okay, this is from this previous page.
Do you see that?
And then on top. Okay.
Yes. The first full quote from Frank Cassio on that page, okay?
Okay.
Frank says, I'm going to call you just to see how you're doing, because we need to protect you and your family. So I'll call you in 1 hour to see if you're okay. And you say, okay, right?
Aha, this is correct, being polite.
At no time do you disagree with the continually repeated idea that your family needs some protection, right?
And at no time do I request it. Whereupon, a portion of a CD, Plaintiff's Exhibit 809, was played for the court and jury.
You tell Frank you're at your mom's house. He says to you, this is the number to your mom's house, ? And you say, yeah, correct?
This is correct.
Are you still telling the jury you never wanted Frank to have the number to your mom's house?
He's calling at my mom's house. He asked me, is this your mom's house? I never gave it to him. He already had it.
Okay.
I'm at my mom's house.
And you have no idea how Frank got the number to your mom's house, true?
That's correct.
Okay, now, going back a little bit.
Oh, yeah, now I know how.
I understand. Going back a little bit, I told them when people neglected us, rejected us, they don't know. And then there's a tape break. It says, baby rubba. What were you referring to when you said, people neglected us and rejected us?
My husband, my ex-husband David Arvizo, with his family.
Were you referring to anyone else?
No, nobody else.
Do you remember in the rebuttal video where you accused the Department of Children and Family Services of neglecting your family?
Maybe it was. Maybe it was put in another context, but that's what I meant. My ex-in-laws.
They're the only people you're referring to, right?
That's exactly right.
Okay, now, in that rebuttal tape, you also talk about your family being spit on and discriminated against and things like that, correct?
Yes.
And are you only referring to David's family when you say that?
Part of it is David's family. And David. Mostly David.
And who's the rest of it?
Mostly David, his family. And just different things like that. Different experiences.
But in that tape you talk about more people than David and his family.
Are we talking about this tape or?
I'm asking about the rebuttal tape now, okay?
Okay.
You talk about, excuse me, in that tape, you say words to the effect, we've been spit on, we've been fried, we've been rejected because of our race, and a whole bunch of things, right? You're not referring to David's family when you say that?
Are you missing the point that it was all scripted?
I'm asking you a question, Miss Arvizo. Could you please answer it?
Okay. Remember in the initial meeting in Miami how I was just telling everything about, to the Germans? Well, obviously they were in the works in doing the script since back then.
So when you say words to that effect in this conversation.
The
Brad Miller interview in the rebuttal video, you're only referring to David's family?
Brad Miller audio tape, and this is referring to David mostly, with his family. But in the rebuttal, like I said, it was all scripted. All of it. It was the information that they had extracted from me and my children. And it's pretty obvious that it's very ingrained. The experiences that I have felt and gone through with my ex-family, which is David's family.
Okay.
And they put it in with their little script.
Okay. Whereupon, a portion of a CD, Plaintiff's Exhibit 809, was played for the court and jury to its conclusion. Your Honor, I think that completes the recording of the phone conversation.
Okay.
Now, Miss Arvizo, you filed for divorce from David approximately 5 days after you settled the J.C. Penney case, correct?
I filed for divorce after David was arrested for domestic violence.
Your Honor, may I ask the court to instruct the witness to answer the question?
Well, your question was about.
Just a moment. Would you read the question back to the witness?
Now, Miss Arvizo, you filed for divorce from David approximately 5 days after you settled the J.C. Penney case, correct?
I don't know about that. He wanted a history as far as when, and I'm telling you, I filed for divorce the day after, not the day after, but after David finally was arrested for domestic violence.
In your case against David for domestic violence, you told the Los Angeles Police Department that he had been abusing you for many years, true?
This is correct.
You told the Los Angeles Police Department that he had been abusing you since you were married, correct?
This is correct.
Had David been abusing you from the time you were married?
This is correct.
You told the Los Angeles Police Department that for approximately 17 years, he had been physically and emotionally abusing you, right?
This is correct.
You also said he had been abusing your children for the entire marriage, correct?
This is correct.
But in the J.C. Penney case, when you wanted money, you said the opposite about David, didn't you?
That's incorrect. When David was arrested, I went to Rothstein's office, who was in charge of the civil proceedings, of the civil J.C. Penney's lawsuit, and I told him David has finally been arrested. I want to correct this statement that me and my children were unable to say because he was still part of our life. And I went to their office, and they told me that they would take care of it. And that's why when the police asked me to waive this information of my civil lawsuit, I did happily. And yet these Rothstein people did not do that. I told them to inform J.C. Penney's and Tower Records that that information was incorrect right after David was arrested. I finally was liberated to say what actually had been going on for years.
Miss Arvizo.
So you're inaccurate.
Well, Miss Arvizo, do you remember having your sworn deposition taken in the J.C. Penney case?
Yes.
And that was a case that you had filed claiming you were sexually abused by J.C. Penney by the security guards in a public parking lot, correct?
I gave the civil lawyers the information about what happened, just as I told the police department, the West Covina Police Department. Now, how they write their statement, how they do these paperworks, I don't know. But it's only one story. And it's been repeated over and over. How they put it in this paperwork, I don't know. I wasn't the attorney.
Miss Arvizo, you gave a sworn deposition in that case where you were placed under oath, correct?
This is correct.
And you filed a claim for monetary damages against J.C. Penney, correct?
This is correct.
You were claiming that you had suffered physical injury because of what J.C. Penney security guards did to you, correct?
Tower Records.
Correct?
This is correct.
And to prove your claim for monetary damages, you had to explain that your physical injuries were solely the result of what J.C. Penney and Tower Records had done to you, correct?
This is correct. And they had me explain, to the millisecond, of the process while I was being hurt.
Your deposition was taken on December 18, the year 2000, correct?
Yes, while I was still married and David was with me and my children. Yes, that's correct.
And what year did you file for divorce from David?
Approximately in 2001. When David was arrested.
And on December 18, the year 2000, you were asked under oath, has David Arvizo ever struck you? And you said, no.
This is correct.
You were asked under oath, has David ever struck your children? You said, no. We goof around a lot, though, play. Correct?
Yes, this is correct.
You were not telling the truth under oath when you made those statements, correct?
But prior to settlement, I had went to Rothstein's office and I requested that they fix that, after David was arrested, because I finally could open my mouth. And this, I want you to have a picture of this.
Move to strike, Your Honor.
This is when Gavin is going through chemotherapy.
Just a moment. Just a moment. I'll strike her answer to that.
Further in that deposition.
Just a moment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Pardon me.
Do you want to go back to the question you asked? The answer has been stricken.
Yes, if we could have it read back, Your Honor, I'd appreciate it.
You were not telling the truth under oath when you made those statements, correct?
This is correct.
Further, in that deposition, you were asked, have you had any marital problems at all other than related to this incident at JCPenney? And you said, no, right?
This is correct. I was, by the time that David had gotten arrested. I was never going to tell anything that he had done to me or my kids. Never.
You lied under oath to increase the amount of money you could get from what you claimed JCPenney and Tower had done to you, right?
Objection. Argumentative.
Sustained.
Now, in that deposition, you were asked when you decided to file a lawsuit, correct?
Correct.
You said you decided to file a lawsuit against JCPenney and Tower Records 2 weeks or 2 or 3 weeks prior to the expiration date. Remember that?
I don't understand what your question is.
Well, I'm just going to ask you about your answer. And I can show you the page, if you want to see it.
No, I just don't understand your question. I don't know whether you're making a statement or an actual question.
Then that's my mistake. I'll rephrase it.
Okay, that's okay.
In your deposition under oath, in the JCPenney case, you were asked the question, when did you decide to file a lawsuit? Do you remember that?
Yes.
And your answer was, 2 weeks or 2 or 3 weeks prior to the expiration date.
This is correct. If it's on there, it is correct.
Then you were asked, was that before or after the criminal charges had been dropped? Remember that?
Yes.
And you said, way after, correct?
Yes.
When you used the words, expiration date, you were referring to the deadline that you had to file charges. File a lawsuit before, correct?
That's what I was explained.
You would lose your right to file a civil suit if you didn't file it by a certain date, correct?
That's what I was explained by the civil attorneys.
And
if there's anything that sounds worth of any intelligence there, that's what I was informed. No credit to me, only to the civil attorneys.
Well, you knew enough to say under oath that you filed your civil case before the deadline, right?
Because of attorneys had made me aware of that.
Are you aware of the deadlines that you or your children have to file claims against Mr. Jackson?
We will never file a claim against Mr. Jackson. I want justice here.
Are you aware, Ms. Arvizo, of the deadlines you have to file a civil claim against Mr. Jackson? Yes or no?
I think so. I'm not interested, so I don't ask.
I understand. And in this case you weren't interested until after the criminal investigation was over, correct?
I wanted an apology.
Which case is counsel referring to? Vague.
I will rephrase it. The prosecutor is correct. In the JCPenney case, you waited till after a criminal investigation was over to file your civil claims, true?
I wanted an apology.
You wanted over $100,000, didn't you?
I didn't get over $100,000.
You got $152,000 in the settlement, Miss Arvizo, didn't you?
In my hand, I did not get $150,000.
May I ask the witness be instructed?
I think she just answered.
I answered.
It was. Your question, your last question, was basically whether she got a certain amount, and she's trying to answer that.
The settlement to you and...
Just a minute. Let her finish the answer.
In my hand, I received only $32,000. That's it. In my hand. And that's my best approximation.
Miss Arvizo, what did Gavin get in his hand from that settlement?
I don't remember, because it's been put away where it's to be untouched by me.
What did Star get in his hand in that settlement?
Still nothing. I don't know, because it's something that's untouched by me. It's for them.
What did David get in his hand from that settlement?
You're going to have to ask David, and yet he was not injured whatsoever.
The total was over $152,000 that your family was given in the settlement, true?
That you have to ask my civil attorneys. And I think his statement may be correct.
Okay, you claimed in that case that you had bruises from what the security guards did to you, right?
It is correct.
After you had resolved that case and obtained money, you claimed that you were bruised by David, true?
I had always been bruised by David for years. But I never told anyone until after David was arrested. That was the pivotal point in my life. Not until David was arrested did I say anything about bruises in my whole entire life, and that was only with people of authority. That's it.
When you were seeking money from J.C. Penney and Tower Records, you testified under oath on December 18, the year 2000, that you never had any black and blue marks prior to the incident at J.C. Penney, correct?
Yes, this is correct. I was too embarrassed to ever tell anyone.
You made that statement because you wanted any injury you ever had to be attributed to J.C. Penney and Tower Records, right?
Incorrect. What J.C. Penney's and Tower Records did to me was one day, one situation, one incident. That's it.
If you had testified truthfully under oath and said that your bruises were from David, the amount of monetary damages you could get from J.C. Penney would have been lowered, true?
This is incorrect. I would have never told anyone until David got arrested that David was giving me these bruises. Never. People would see me with bruises and I would never tell them.
Did you lie under oath in your deposition in the J.C. Penney case?
I tried to remedy that when I had gone to after David was arrested, I went to Rothstein's office. And I requested that they inform Tower Records and J.C. Penney's that I would like to make that correct statement because the statements that were there were incorrect. But finally me and my kids could finally say what was really happening for many years.
Mrs. Arvizo, the problem you had was that when you made allegations later on against David that he had abused you for 17 years, there was a deposition that had previously been taken where you said the opposite under oath, right?
It's too long. There's a yes and no, and now I don't know.
Let's take a break.